This is for self-reflection. You might need it. That is what I was told later, anyway. I am not the kind of man who wakes up on Father's Day expecting balloons, applause, or a parade in my honor. I am realistic. Still, I thought the day might hold something decent. Maybe a little respect. Maybe a sign that I mattered as more than the guy who pays the bills and fixes the leaky sink. I was wrong. That Sunday morning in June began like most others. Sunlight poured through the kitchen windows, lighting up dust I never had time to clean. I dragged myself downstairs in my worn-out pajama pants, feeling that familiar quiet hope. Maybe today would feel different. Maybe today I would feel like I belonged here. My wife, Laura, was already in the kitchen holding her favorite coffee mug, the one that says, "But first, coffee," like it is the funniest truth ever written. Her daughter, Madison, was sitting on the counter with a smug little smile on her face. My stepson, Tyler, stood in the doorway holding his phone up, pretending to scroll but clearly waiting for something. I assumed they were laughing at a video or some online nonsense. "Happy Father's Day," Laura said in a sing-song voice as she handed me a plain cardboard box. She was grinning way too hard. The kind of smile that should make a man nervous. "Open it," Madison said, bouncing on the counter. She lifted her phone higher, ready to record. I took the box because standing there refusing it would have made things worse. I opened the flaps and pushed aside the tissue paper. Inside was a white ceramic mug. For a brief moment, I thought it might say something normal. "Best stepdad" would have been fine. Even "thanks for trying" would have earned a real laugh from me. Instead, printed in big, dark letters, it said, "World's biggest disappointment." I froze. I held that mug like it was proof of a crime, waiting for someone to jump in and say it was a joke and the real gift was coming next. Nobody did. They laughed. Not polite laughs. Not awkward chuckles. They laughed hard. Laura bent over, wiping tears from her eyes. Madison slapped the counter like she had just heard the best joke of her life. Tyler shifted a little, clearly uncomfortable, but he never stopped recording. "Oh my God, look at your face," Laura said between laughs. "I told you he would not expect it. This is hilarious." Madison looked at me like she wanted approval. "Right? It is funny." My brain could not decide whether to fall apart or shut down completely. Instead, it did what it always did. It forced a smile. I smiled so wide my face hurt. I laughed a little too, because that is how I survived in that house. "Thanks," I said. I have always wanted my self-worth permanently burned into ceramic. That made them laugh even harder. Laura walked over and patted my shoulder, the way someone does to a dog that finally learned how to sit. "See? I knew you would take it well. You always have such a good sense of humor." A good sense of humor. That is what people call it when you are slowly breaking inside, but refuse to make others uncomfortable. I set the mug down carefully and noticed the kitchen counter. Pancakes, bacon, eggs. All gone. Dirty plates stacked in the sink, syrup dried hard like glue. "Oh, we already ate," Laura said casually. "We thought you would sleep longer. But feel free to make yourself something." Feel free. Like it was a gift. "No problem," I said, still smiling. "I will clean up first." And I did. I stood there scrubbing dried batter off plates while they moved into the living room. Their laughter faded, replaced by the sound of television. I thought about the other Father's Days. The neckties I never wore. The cards that felt empty because, deep down, I knew I was not really their dad. But this was different. This was not forgetting. This was not carelessness. They chose that mug on purpose. They read the words, "World's biggest disappointment," and thought, "Yes, this fits him perfectly." I dried my hands and made a quiet decision. Nothing dramatic. Just final. That night, after dinner, after pretending everything was fine, after saying goodnight like always, I packed a bag. Only what mattered. Clothes. My toolbox from the garage. Whatever dignity I had left. I did not write a note. There was nothing left to explain. I walked out the front door, got into my car, and drove. 2 weeks passed before I turned my phone back on. 17 missed calls from Laura. 34 text messages. And then I saw the Facebook post. She had written this long, emotional message online. It said something like, "Please, if anyone knows where he is, tell him we just want him home. We love him and miss him so much." She attached a photo of me from about 2 years earlier. I was standing at a neighborhood barbecue, smiling like life made sense. The comments flooded in. People offering prayers. People saying I would come back when I was ready. People telling her to stay strong. Not one single person knew about that mug. I ended up staying at a cheap roadside motel called the Sunrise Inn. $49 a night. For that price, you got walls so thin you could hear people breathing, a television with 3 channels that only played infomercials, and cockroaches that ran across the bathroom floor like they were late for work. The guy at the front desk never even looked up when I checked in. He slid a key across the counter with the room number written on a plastic tag in black marker. Then he went right back to watching what looked like a documentary about aliens. No questions, no pity, just business. I love that part. Room 9 was exactly what you would expect. One bed that sagged in the middle, a nightstand with a lamp that flickered like it was about to give up, and a painting of a boat on the wall that somehow managed to be both boring and unsettling. The carpet had one of those patterns designed to hide stains, which told me everything I needed to know. I dropped my bag on the bed and stood there listening. Someone 3 rooms down was yelling. Above me, someone was either moving furniture or practicing wrestling moves. Every few minutes, the ice machine down the hall made a loud, grinding noise. This was my life now. The first week passed in a haze. I woke up every morning staring at the popcorn ceiling, counting stains. I shuffled to the convenience store for coffee that tasted like it had been brewed through rubber. Sometimes I grabbed a breakfast burrito that was clearly older than it should have been. My phone stayed off. I was not ready for what I knew was waiting. Eventually, reality forced my hand. Bills do not care about emotional collapse. I turned my phone on to check my bank account, and that is when I saw everything. The missed calls, the text messages, and that post. It had been up for 3 days. Over 200 comments. Against my better judgment, I clicked on her profile. There it was, pinned right at the top like a missing person notice. The picture she used was from a summer barbecue 2 years earlier. I was holding a grill spatula, wearing an apron that said Grill Sergeant, smiling like I had just won something. I looked happy in that photo. I looked like I belonged. The comments were exactly what you would expect. A woman from her yoga class wrote that she was praying for us. A guy I used to work with said he hoped I was okay and thinking of me. Her sister, who never cared for me, wrote that some people just cannot handle commitment and told her to stay strong. Not one of them knew the truth. Not one person knew about the mug. Not one person knew her daughter filmed my humiliation like it was content. Not one person knew I spent Father's Day scrubbing their dirty dishes while laughter echoed from the other room. But the part that really got me, the part that actually made me laugh out loud in that depressing motel room, was one line she wrote. She said the kids were devastated. The same kids who thought calling me the world's biggest disappointment was hilarious. The same kids who went on with their lives the moment I walked out the door. Rock bottom is a strange place. You cannot stay there forever. Eventually, you either dig deeper or you start climbing. I am not a digger. I am a fixer. That is what I have always done. About 3 weeks into living at the Sunrise Inn, I looked at myself in the bathroom mirror and barely recognized the man staring back. My hair was too long in that given-up kind of way. My beard had gone from rough to possibly hosting wildlife. I had been wearing the same shirt for the 3rd day in a row. This is pathetic, I said to my reflection. So I did something drastic. I took a shower. I used soap everywhere. I dug through my bag and found the least wrinkled shirt I owned. Then I walked 2 blocks to an old-school barber shop called Sam's. It had a spinning red and white pole outside. Sam himself was probably 70 years old, with forearms like a cartoon sailor. He did not ask questions. He just sat me down and got to work. 20 minutes later, I looked like a human being again. My next stop was Willow Creek Hardware, a family-owned place I had driven past 100 times. I walked in, found the manager, a woman named Linda with kind eyes and a no-nonsense attitude, and asked if they were hiring. She looked me up and down. "You know tools better than some people know their own family," she said. She cracked a small smile. "When can you start?" "Right now," I said, "if that works." And just like that, I had a job. It was minimum wage plus commission, nothing fancy, but it was honest work. More than that, it gave me something I had been missing for a long time. Purpose. The customers were exactly what you would expect from a small-town hardware store. Old men who wanted to tell their entire life story while buying a single bolt. Contractors who walked in knowing exactly what they needed and did not waste a second. Homeowners who had started projects way above their skill level and were now panicking. I liked all of them. They talked to me like I mattered. They asked my opinion. They laughed at my jokes. The cashier, a woman named Claire, teased me in that friendly, harmless way that made the days go faster. For the first time in longer than I could remember, I felt like a real person again. Not a husband, not a stepfather, not a joke, just me, Mike. the guy who knew the difference between a Phillips screwdriver and a flathead. Mike, the guy who could recommend the right drill bit without looking it up. Mike, the guy who existed without needing approval. That is where I met Frank. Frank came into the store at least 3 times a week. He always needed something random, and he always had a story ready. He was a retired Marine, about 65 years old, built like he could still knock out 100 push-ups without breaking a sweat. "You know tools?" he asked the first time I helped him, giving me a hard look. "I started last week," I said. "So you actually know something," he said. "Or are you one of those kids who just points at the computer? Try me." He listed off items that would have sent most employees running. I grabbed a card and started pulling exactly what he needed. Toggle bolts, 3/4-inch zinc-plated wood screws, a specific brand of wood glue most people had never even heard of. Frank watched me work. When I finished, he nodded. "You actually know what you are doing," he said. "That is rare." That was the start of our friendship. He began timing his visits for my shifts. We talked about tools, then projects, and eventually life. One day, we were standing in aisle 7, surrounded by fasteners and anchors. He was telling me about his daughter's wedding. "Best day of my life," he said. "Getting to be her dad." I must have made a face, because he stopped talking and looked straight at me. "What is that look?" he asked. "Nothing," I said. "That just sounds nice." "But nothing," he said, crossing his arms. "Listen, son. I have been coming to this store for 15 years. I have seen people come and go. Most of them barely look up from their phones. But you are different. You care. You know your stuff." He paused, then added, "And you look like someone kicked your dog, ran over your cat, and then came back to apologize in a way that somehow made it worse." I opened my mouth to argue, but he raised his hand. "I am not asking for your whole story," he said. "But I am going to tell you something it took me way too long to learn. People who laugh at you are not people who love you. They just need an audience." Something cracked open in my chest right there between the anchors and bolts. "They gave me a mug for Father's Day," I said quietly. It said, "World's biggest disappointment." Frank did not laugh. He did not look shocked. He just nodded slowly. "And you stayed?" he asked. "For a few hours," I said. "Then I left." "Good," he said. "That is good." He grabbed his items and headed toward the register, then stopped and turned back. "You know what disappointment really is, Mike," he said. "It is not about you. It is about expectations. And if their expectation was that you would keep smiling while they tore you down, then disappointing them is exactly what you should do." Around that same time, I started eating breakfast every morning at Nora's diner. It became my routine, my anchor. Nora's was one of those places time forgot, but in a good way. Red vinyl booths patched with duct tape, a black and white checkered floor, spinning stools that squeaked when you sat down. The whole place smelled like bacon grease and coffee that had been sitting on the burner too long. It was perfect. The morning waitress was a woman named Carol. She was probably in her mid-50s, with hair dyed a shade of red that refused to be ignored. She called everyone sweetheart. She refilled your coffee without asking. She remembered how you like your eggs after one visit. She had a gift for knowing when you wanted to talk and when you wanted silence. "Morning, sweetheart," she would say, coffee pot already in hand. The usual? The usual was 2 eggs over easy and wheat toast. And for the first time in a long time, that was enough. The hash browns came out so crispy you could probably use them as a weapon if things went bad. The whole meal cost $6.95, which felt like daylight robbery, but I paid it gladly. Some mornings, when I looked especially worn down, Carol would slide an extra strip of bacon onto my plate without charging me. She never said anything about it. Small move, big impact. About 3 months in, I did something that sounded insane even to me. I started a YouTube channel. I know. Every middle-aged guy going through a personal meltdown thinks he is going to reinvent himself on the internet. I was not delusional enough to think I would become famous, but I figured it could work as proof. A portfolio. Evidence that I actually knew what I was talking about. I called the channel Fix It Frank, mostly because I am terrible at naming things. My first video was filmed in my motel room. My phone was propped up on a stack of books, and the lighting came from a flickering lamp that barely survived the shoot. The topic was screwdrivers. Different types. When to use them. Thrilling stuff. But I made it funny. I used the same dry, sarcastic humor that had kept me sane during years of being the family punchline. The difference was, this time, I was choosing the joke. "This is a Phillips head screwdriver," I said to the camera, holding it up. named after Henry Phillips, who invented it in the 1930s and probably never imagined that 90 years later, a guy living in a roadside motel would be explaining it to strangers on the internet. I uploaded it just after midnight on a Tuesday because I was too nervous to post during normal hours. Then I turned off my phone and tried to sleep. The next morning, I checked. 53 views, 12 likes, 3 comments. This is actually helpful. Thanks, subscribed. Finally, someone who does not sound like a robot. So I made another video. Then another. Tool reviews. Basic repair tutorials. One slightly unhinged rant about why people need to stop using duct tape for absolutely everything. That one blew up, at least by my standards. 20,000 views in a week. Small companies started emailing me, asking if I would review their products. They sent free tools. I made honest videos. This drill costs $49 and claims it can handle any job around the house, I said in one video. That is a lie. I used it to hang 3 pictures and it started smoking. Not metaphorically. Actual smoke. Like it was about to catch fire. 0 stars. Do not buy this. The views kept climbing. 5,000 subscribers. 10,000. Companies I had actually heard of started reaching out with sponsorship offers. Not enough to quit my day job, but enough to move out of the Sunrise Inn. I found a 1-bedroom apartment above a pizza shop in downtown Willow Creek. It smelled like pepperoni and possibilities. Frank helped me move. That part was easy because I owned almost nothing. But I had a real bed frame now. A desk for editing videos. A bookshelf that was mostly empty, but somehow made me feel like an adult. Look at you, Frank said, standing in the doorway. From motel room to apartment. From disaster to minor internet celebrity. Let us not get carried away, I said. I am serious, he said. You took a garbage situation and turned it into something. Most people just sit in the garbage and complain. You climbed out. Standing there in my small apartment that smelled like pizza, but was mine, I could not argue with him. He was right. Around that time, I started thinking about my stepson. He had been the quiet one. The kid who looked uncomfortable filming that Father's Day mess, but still did it. He never really joined in on the jokes. He just stayed in the background, like stage crew in a play he never signed up for. I had been so focused on leaving that I had not stopped to think about how it affected him. So about 4 months after I left, I did something I had not done in years. I wrote a letter. An actual pen and paper letter, because some things deserve weight. I sat at my desk with a cheap notepad and a pen from the hardware store. The first draft was awful. Too angry. I crumpled it up. The second was too casual. The third felt right. Hey bud, it started. That was what I had always called him. I told him I was okay. I told him I did not know what his mom had said, but I wanted him to hear it from me. I told him I did not leave because of him. Sometimes adults have to step away to find peace. I admitted that sounded vague and probably frustrating, but the truth was complicated. I told him I was not going to speak badly about his mom, but I could not pretend everything was fine when it was not. I wrote that I stayed as long as I could, tried as hard as I could, and eventually had to choose between being there and being okay. I chose okay. I told him I hoped one day he would understand. Then I wrote the part one meant most. That he was a good kid. Quiet but good. That he noticed things other people missed. And that mattered. Do not lose that. I wrote at the end of the letter. If you ever want to talk, I will be at Willow Creek Library on Saturday at 3 in the afternoon. I will probably be sitting there reading something boring. If you show up, great. If you do not, I understand. No pressure. No expectations. Take care of yourself, bud. And remember this. You are not responsible for other people's happiness. Only your own. I signed it with my name. That Thursday, I drove to his school and waited in the parking lot, feeling incredibly creepy until I saw him come outside. Headphones on. Backpack hanging off one shoulder. Eyes locked on his phone. Evan, I said when he looked up. His face went through about 17 emotions in 3 seconds. Mike, what are you doing here? I wanted to give you this, I said, holding out the envelope. I know it is weird. I did not have your number, and I did not want to go through your mom. He took it slowly. Is everything okay? I am fine, I said. Better, actually. Read the letter. It explains things. Or at least tries to. He turned the envelope over in his hands. Mom said you just left. Did not say anything. That part is true, I said. And I am sorry. You deserved better. He nodded, but did not say much else. Saturday, I said. 3 o'clock. The library. If you want. Okay, he said. Saturday came, and I showed up at 2:30 because I am the kind of person who shows up early to everything. The library was one of those small-town places that felt like someone's grandmother's house. Wood paneling, the smell of old books, big windows that let in too much sunlight. I found a table in the back and sat down with a book about woodworking that I did not actually read. I watched the door. 3 o'clock came. Then 3:05. 3:10. By 3:15, I accepted that he was not coming. Then at 3:17, the door opened. There he was, taller than I remembered, nervous, holding his backpack like a shield. Our eyes met. "Dad," he said quietly. Not Mike. "Dad." I did not realize how badly I needed to hear that word until it hit me. "Hey, bud," I said, standing up, suddenly unsure whether to hug him or shake his hand. "You came?" "Yeah," he said. "I read your letter like 15 times. I think we should talk." So we sat, and we talked. For the first time in months, I felt like maybe I had not destroyed everything after all. We started meeting every other Saturday. Sometimes we talked about serious things, how he was doing, what life was like at home. Other times we talked about school, video games, a girl he liked. Those meetings became my anchor, proof that I mattered to someone. Work was going well too. Linda gave me a small raise, 50 cents more an hour. It felt like winning the lottery. She started trusting me with more responsibility, ordering inventory, training new employees. "You are good at this," she told me one day. "Better than good. You ever think about running your own place?" "Not really," I said, "just trying to keep my head above water." "Well," she said, "when you are ready to do more than tread water, let me know." The YouTube channel kept growing. I posted twice a week. People kept watching. Ad revenue, sponsorships, affiliate links. It was not quit your job money yet, but it was pay rent and eat real food money. Freedom money. Around month 5, Evan mentioned something during one of our Saturday talks. "My mom has been asking about you a lot," he said. "About what?" I asked. "Where you live, what you are doing, if you have a job." She is being weird about it. More interested than she should be. "How interested are we talking?" He hesitated. "Somewhere between curious and talking to lawyers." My stomach tightened. "She saw one of your videos," he added. "The one about the circular saw." I felt it coming before he even finished. "And what did she say?" He shifted in his seat. "She said it is interesting that you have money for video equipment, but apparently did not have money for the family." There it was. The story was forming. Mike the deadbeat. Mike who abandoned his family and is now living it up on the internet while his poor wife struggles. Never mind that my equipment was an old phone balanced on books. Never mind that every dollar I earned was mine. Facts never matter when someone is writing their own version of the truth. "Evan," I said carefully, "I need you to be honest. Do you think your mom is going to try to come after me for money?" He did not answer right away. That was answer enough. "I do not know," he said. "She has been talking to Aunt Valerie a lot." Valerie was her older sister, a corporate lawyer. She never liked me. So I did what any reasonable, slightly paranoid man would do. I called my old friend Brian from high school. He ran an accounting firm now. We met the next day at his office. "You want to protect your assets from your wife?" he said. "Soon-to-be ex-wife," I corrected. "And no," I added, "that is not bad. It is smart." I laid everything out. The YouTube income, the savings account, the truck I bought, the sponsorships. "And you left how many months ago?" he asked. 5. "Have you filed for divorce?" "No." Brian gave me that look professionals give when you say something incredibly stupid. We had work to do. "Mike, listen to me," my friend said. "You need to file for divorce immediately. Like yesterday." He walked me through everything. Setting up a limited liability company for my channel. Separating personal money from business money. Creating a trust. My head felt like it was stuffed with legal paperwork, but by the end of the meeting, I felt steadier. Not bulletproof, but steadier. "One more thing," he said, tapping his pen on the desk. "You need to name a beneficiary for the trust. Someone who gets it if something happens to you." I did not hesitate. "Evan," I said. "My stepson." He nodded and wrote it down. That says a lot. A few days later, I hired a lawyer named Susan who specialized in asset protection. Her office was above a sandwich shop and permanently smelled like pastrami. She was in her mid-40s, wore reading glasses on a chain, and spoke with the kind of direct honesty that made you sit up straight. "So," she said, flipping through my paperwork, "you left your wife after she gave you a mug calling you a disappointment. You have been gone for months. You did not file for divorce. You built a successful online business. And now you think she is preparing to come after your money." I exhaled. "When you say it like that, it sounds like a bad country song." She smirked. Here is my advice. File now. Do not wait. You file first. That gives you control. Document everything. Every dollar you earn. Where it comes from. Where it goes. Keep it completely separate from anything shared. She leaned forward. And most important, you thrive. You succeed so loudly that when people look at this situation, they do not see a man who abandoned his family. They see a man who escaped something unhealthy and built a better life. She paused, then smiled slightly. Sometimes the best revenge is thriving so loudly they cannot stand the noise. I liked her immediately. I walked out of her office feeling prepared. I had an accountant. I had a lawyer. I had a plan. The mug sat on my desk now, holding pins instead of pain. Every time I looked at it, I smiled. They thought they were breaking me. All they did was unlock the door. Then one night, while scrolling through social media on a fake account because apparently I am that petty, I saw a post from my ex-wife. Big announcement. Custom graphic. Graduation celebration. Join us in celebrating Madison's achievement. Saturday, June 15th, 6 in the evening. Open house. All are welcome. All are welcome. That phrase stuck with me. Did all include the husband she humiliated and labeled missing? Probably not. But she said all. And I believe in taking people at their word. Frank thought it was a terrible idea. You are going to do what? He asked. I am going to stop by? Say congratulations. Be polite. That is a terrible idea, he said flatly. Probably, I said. But I am doing it anyway. Why? He asked. You moved on. Because they need to see they did not break me, I said. Because she is graduating. And because I helped raise her for 3 years. And because I am done hiding. He sighed. At least do not go alone. No, I said. This is something I need to do myself. Saturday arrived with perfect weather. I put on my best jeans, a button-up shirt I actually ironed, and boots I polished until they looked almost new. I stood in front of the mirror and barely recognized the confident man staring back. The house looked exactly the same. Same beige siding. Same mailbox I installed years ago. I could hear music. Laughter. For a moment, I almost turned around. Then I remembered the mug. The jokes. The lies. I walked up the driveway like I belonged there. Because legally, I still did. The party did not stop all at once. It faded. Like someone slowly turned down the volume. Conversations stalled. Someone dropped a cup. My ex-wife stood near the drinks table, wine glass frozen halfway to her mouth. Her face shifted through shock, confusion, anger, and panic before settling on something sour. Madison stood near the cake table in a blue dress and a graduation cap covered in glitter. She went pale, but Evan was sitting with friends. When he saw me, his whole face lit up. He stood and walked toward me without hesitation. That was all the confirmation I needed. Mike, my ex-wife said sharply. What are you doing here? I smiled, calm and steady. Just stopping by to say congratulations. It is an open house, right? All are welcome. I could see her calculating, trying to shut this down without causing a scene. You cannot just show up here, she hissed. Actually, I can, I said evenly. I am still legally part owner of this property. And you did say all were welcome. But do not worry. I am not staying long. Evan reached me and wrapped his arms around me in front of everyone. I am glad you came, he said. Me too, bud, I replied. I turned to Madison, who stood frozen by the cake like a deer in headlights. I pulled a small wrapped box from my pocket and held it out. Congratulations on graduating, I said. I know things are complicated, but I did help raise you for 3 years. And for the first time, I did not feel small standing in that house. I felt free. That has to count for something, I said. She took the small box from my hand slowly. What is it? Open it. Inside was a compact mirror. She frowned. What is this for? I looked her straight in the eyes. Self-reflection. Try it sometime. You might learn something. The reaction was immediate. The crowd sucked in air all at once like someone had knocked the wind out of the party. My ex-wife's face went from pale to bright red in seconds. How dare you, she snapped. How dare I what? I said calmly. Show up? Congratulate your daughter? Be polite. Exist? I turned fully toward her. You told people online that I was missing. You told them I abandoned my family. But the truth is, I left because staying was slowly erasing me. And the fact that you never once stopped to consider that giving someone a disappointment mug on Father's Day might hurt them says everything about why I walked away. It was a joke, she said. Jokes are supposed to be funny, I replied. That was just cruelty wearing a smile. People were pulling out their phones now. Recording. Watching. I did not come here to make a scene, I said. I came to congratulate Madison. I came to show Evan I am still here for him. And I came to prove to myself that I am not afraid of you anymore. I nodded once. Mission accomplished. I started walking toward the gate, then stopped and turned back. Oh, and one more thing, I said. Before you decide to come after me for money, you might want to talk to your lawyer. Mine says you do not have a case. But feel free to try. I have time. And I have documentation. Do you? I got in my truck and drove away, smiling the entire way home. The fallout came fast. By Sunday morning, my phone would not stop buzzing. Evan texted me first. That was the most savage thing I have ever seen. Mama's been pacing all night. Frank called next, asking if I had completely lost my mind or finally found it. People from the party somehow got my number and sent messages saying they had always thought my ex-wife was fake. Saying good for you. Saying they were glad someone finally stood up to her. That Sunday night, I did what I do best. I turned my life into content. I sat at my desk, set up my phone, and recorded the video that would become the most watched one on my channel. Hey everyone, I said. Mike here from Fix It Frank. Today we are not talking about tools. We are talking about the day my family gave me a mug for Father's Day that said I was the world's biggest disappointment. I told the story honestly. No names. No faces. Just facts. The mug. The laughter. The leaving. The rebuilding. At the end, I held up the actual mug. This mug sits on my desk now, I said. It holds my pens. Not my pain. Because when people call you a disappointment, they are really talking about their expectations. Not your worth. I paused. They expected me to stay quiet and keep taking it. I disappointed them by choosing myself instead. I titled the video, World's Biggest Disappointment. The day my family gave me freedom in a mug. It exploded. 500,000 views in 48 hours. The comments turned into a support group. Mostly men. Some women too. People who had lived through the same kind of quiet disrespect and never talked about it. News outlets reached out. I did interviews. I stayed calm. I stayed respectful. I never named anyone. 2 weeks later, I got an email from Madison. She apologized. She said she had watched the video. Read the post. Finally understood. She said she did not expect forgiveness, but I deserved to know that she got it now. That I was never the disappointment. That they were disappointed in themselves and took it out on me. She said she was trying to be better. I wrote back and thanked her. I told her the offer for coffee was open if she ever wanted to talk. She never took me up on it. But that was okay. The apology was real. And that mattered. The divorce went through without a fight. My ex-wife realized that pushing back would only make things worse, especially after the video. Sometimes the court of public opinion is stronger than any courtroom. That mug still sits on my desk. People ask why I keep it. I tell them it reminds me that I survived. That I took the worst gift someone could give me and turned it into motivation. Every morning, I grab a pen from that mug to write my to-do list. And every morning, I smile. They thought that mug would define me. They were right. Just not the way they intended. It defined the moment I chose myself. The moment I realized that being called a disappointment by people who did not value me was better than being valued by people who only saw me as a joke. I was the world's biggest disappointment to them. But to myself, I was finally enough. And that is the only opinion that ever really mattered.